What's going on, guys? Today we got the 2024 NHL Bracket Challenge. And so, uh, with the playoffs starting right now, all the matchups got decided. And the first games are tonight, and I'm very excited to give you guys my opinions and hear what you guys have to say. So, up first, we got the Dallas Stars versus the Vegas Golden Knights. The top team in the West versus the Stanley Cup defending champions. This should be a good series. Vegas will be getting Mark Stone back. They have done a lot of cap gymnastics, to put it nicely. They did follow all the rules. Now, the only question there is, should what they did be following the rules? I personally think the NHL needs to change the rules so that salary cap counts in the playoffs and they can't do stuff like this. However, I do not think it's going to matter. I think that Dallas is just way too good and will overwhelm them. And so I'm taking the Dallas Stars. Next series, we have the Winnipeg Jets versus the Colorado Avalanche. Now, I think that this is going to be an amazing series. So one of my best friends is an Avalanche fan, so I do know more about them than most teams based on what he's talked to me about. And I do think that they are a great team. They have Nathan MacKinnon, who will most likely win the Hart Trophy this season. Even though my vote would go to Kucherov, it is very close. Between the two teams, Colorado definitely has the better offensive power and probably defensive as well. But when it comes to goaltending, it's not even close. Winnipeg beats them by a mile. Both Georgiev and Noonan, I don't think that I would trust to lead my team in a series right now. And I also do think that Winnipeg has better depth than Colorado, especially since it just came out that Jonathan Drouin will not be playing in the first round. Overall, though, Hellebuck has been on such a heater, and I think that it will be way too easy for Winnipeg to break through. And I do think overall defensively Winnipeg is better, even though Colorado has better defensemen. So I have to take Winnipeg in this series. Next up, we got the Vancouver Canucks versus the Nashville Predators. You got the top team in the Pacific versus the first wild card. And Nashville, I think, is a very underrated team. They look kind of lost in the first quarter, maybe first half of the season. But then Brunette got them playing really well. Obviously, Trotz has his hands in this team, being the GM. And we know what Trotz can do. Overall, on paper, I do like Vancouver more. Philip Forsberg is the best forward on Nashville, and there's a couple different forwards I might take over him on Vancouver. Definitely Elias Pettersson. If Lindholm plays the way that we know that he can, I think I would take him. And then you got probably the top two in Norris voting this year in Roman Josi and Quinn Hughes. So it's going to be a real good series. And then that's not even mentioning yet two of the, I'd argue, top 5, top 10 goaltenders in the NHL in Thatcher Demko and UC Soros. Vancouver has struggled as of late, but they've also been missing Demko for a while. And then Demko came back and looked like he hasn't missed a beat. However, and I will admit, I do know what I'm going to pick for most of the other series, so spoiler warning. This is mainly because I feel like that I need an upset, and I feel that this is the most likely upset to happen when it comes to division winners. So I am going to take the Nashville Predators. Next up, we got the Edmonton Oilers versus the Los Angeles Kings. So this is a series that we're seeing for the third straight year. And it makes sense why these two teams have been kind of locked at the hip lately. They've had very different paths to get here, though. Edmonton had the terrible, terrible start to the year where it looked like that season was basically hopeless for them. Then they fired Woodcroft, and they hired the former Hartford Wolfpack coach. I'm blanking on his name right now, but he has been a fantastic coach for them and really helped them turn this team around. That's actually the coach that, as a Rangers fan, I wanted them to hire when they hired Laviolette. Granted, with hindsight now, I'm very happy with Laviolette, but at the time I definitely did want him. And then the LA Kings also fired their coach midway through the season, um, because LA had a very good start to the year and then was terrible for the middle of the season and then really picked it up at the end. However, they do have. This is a series where goaltending is not really a factor. Cam Talbot has shown that he can play great, but he's inconsistent. I think that he'll have a game where basically he stops like 35 shots and only lets one in, maybe 2 games. But otherwise, I feel like that he's not going to be able to stop McDavid and Draisaitl and Nugent Hopkins and Evan Bouchard. Edmonton is just so much power, and while I would take LA's defense, goaltending is kind of a wash. I do like Stuart Skinner pretty much at the same level as I like Cam Talbot, but I'm not betting against McDavid in this series. So how many games will these series go? First off, you have Dallas versus Vegas. I know I talked about the storyline, defending Cup champ, getting players back, but I really think that Dallas will easily take care of work here in 5 games. Winnipeg, Colorado, again, when it comes to goaltending, I really don't think Georgiev or Noonan can really stop Winnipeg, so I will have to take them in 6. I do think that McKinnon, Rantanen, Taves, Makar, they'll push them and win a couple of games and make the games that they lose close. But I do think Winnipeg does have them this year. Next, we got Nashville and Vancouver. Like I said, this is a series that overall I would say Vancouver is the better team, but I just think that Nashville, they probably have a little bit more experience on their team because Vancouver's only made the playoffs once in recent memory, and that was the play-in playoffs, which they happened to win when they shouldn't have made the playoffs, so it was a normal series. So I'm going to take Nashville winning that in 7. And then Edmonton, LA, like I said, I just don't think that there's any aspect that I would say LA has them beaten. Probably defensively, there's an edge there, but Edmonton, I think, wins in 5. Now onto the Eastern Conference. We got the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Battle of Florida. This is an amazing matchup, at the very least, for these teams hate each other. And the environment in this series is going to be amazing. Tampa has shown that they can go all the way. They went to 3 Stanley Cups in the last 4 years, winning 2 of them. Florida went to the Stanley Cup in that 1 year that Tampa didn't. I think that Florida has more firepower than them. I love Braden Point. Nikita Kucherov has been incredible this season. But from top to bottom, the entire team, I think that Florida has their number offensively. Tampa might have the edge defensively if Sergachev is healthy. If not, I honestly would give the edge to Florida there. And then in net, it depends what Tampa goaltending we get. Vasilevsky had a very mediocre year. As you can see, I give the series to the Florida Panthers. And now here's another familiar matchup. We got the Boston Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs. This series has happened many times, and it seems like that it always goes Boston's way, but always 7 games. However, Boston has a massive hole in their lineup when it comes to their centers. I do not think that their center depth is enough this season. However, I think that their overall offense could absolutely get a bunch of goals off of Toronto with what I would say is a mediocre goaltending and good, not great defense. In Toronto's end, they have amazing offense. You got obviously their great core with Matthews, Marner, Nylander, and Tavares. I do believe that Nylander is missing a game, maybe more of the playoffs. But overall, I would say that Toronto has more firepower on offense. But they have to go through a really strong defense and goaltending in Boston. They got Charlie McAvoy on the back end, who I think is a top 5 defenseman in the NHL, along with Cam Fowler, who is amazing. I'm sorry, it's not Fowler. I got former Ducks defenseman mixed up. You know what I'm talking about, though. And then in net, You got Swayman and Olmark, who is the best goaltending tandem in the NHL. A year ago, I might have ranked them second because I would have given a big edge to Sorokin and Varlamov. While I do say that is still the second best tandem in the NHL, um, I would absolutely take Olmark and Swayman this season. So, with all that considered, though, I just feel like Toronto is going to come into this series hungry, and they are going to take this series in a very tight, long series. And I just realized I don't think that I ever corrected what player it was before. I was talking about Hampus Lindholm on Boston's defense. Next, we got the Rangers versus the Capitals. As a Rangers fan, near the end of the season, that I was watching those games really closely. Washington was not my first choice to play. It probably would have been Philly. However, I was very happy to see Washington win because, to be honest, I was a little bit scared of Pittsburgh. They were on an absolute heater. They have Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Erik Karlsson, just a very deadly team that could have gone on a run. I don't think that they could have won a cup, but they could have absolutely won a round if the Rangers didn't come ready to play. However, Washington, I don't feel the same way. They have Charlie Lindgren in net, who has been very good, but I believe he has slowed down as of recently. On the back end, John Carlson is really good, and that's kind of it on the blue line. Ovechkin is back to playing like Ovechkin. They got Ovechkin, Strome, and Wilson as their best forwards. But they're minus 37 goal differential this season, which granted means when they lose big, but they still won almost half their games this season. However, the Rangers with 55 wins and a President's Trophy, I don't really even need to go in depth about them. You got Panarin with 120 points. You got Adam Fox as probably the second best defenseman in the entire NHL. You got Igor Shesterkin, who is arguably the best goaltender in the NHL. And they got depth at every position. And they got players that also, not just skilled, but will make you scared to play against them. Like, I know Matt Rempe's been a lot of controversy, but when he plays, the other team plays differently. Jacob Trouba, you got to keep your head up when you're going against. And honestly, even players like Keandre Miller and Vincent Trocheck can play a physical playoff brand of hockey. So I'm taking the Rangers easily in this series. Next up, you got the Carolina Hurricanes and the New York Islanders. I think that this will be a much closer series than people give it credit for. I think I'm predicting to see a lot of people say Carolina in 4, maybe 5. The Islanders have been playing really good hockey down the stretch. And in net, right now, I'd say Varlamov is their starter going into the playoffs. But if he falters, I don't think that they are going to have a problem with Sorokin taking over in net. If Dobson is healthy, which is a huge question, he had over 70 points this season, I believe. They've got very good offense in Barzal and Horvat and Nelson, and then it kind of does peter out after there. But they play a very good structure. I'd say that they are a playoff-built team, and they can definitely wear down another team. However, that being said, Carolina just has way too much firepower. They got Jake Gensel, Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov on offense, and that's not even talking about Jarvis, who had an amazing season. In net, Freddie Anderson, since coming back from his injury, has been fantastic. And if he falters, Kochetkov had a very good year. And then on the blue line, I absolutely love Jacob Slavin. I am going to be taking the Carolina Hurricanes. So for Panthers versus Lightning, I do think that this will be a tight series. I don't think that it is going to be very tight where it'll go 7 games. I do think Tampa can steal 2 and bring it to 6. Toronto-Boston, I kind of alluded to this already, but this will be 7-game series, but I do think that Toronto flips the script this year. Rangers-Capitals, see, this is the closest series that I am to putting in 4. However, I feel like the Capitals can beat the Rangers. I think that they went 2-2 against each other this year. And overall, I think that they can steal a game away. Rangers might be coming out a little bit slower in the first game or two, and Washington has been playing playoff hockey down the stretch. So the Rangers will win in 5. And then the Carolina Hurricanes, I have beating the New York Islanders in 6 games. Now on to the second round. First off, you got the Dallas Stars and the Winnipeg Jets. This is going to be an incredible series. I feel like that both teams don't really have that top end talent that a team like a Colorado or a Rangers do, where neither team has a McKinnon, a Panarin, a Kucherov. However, they both have very deep, good teams, both offensively and defensively. I would say the best forward in this series is probably Kyle Connor, but if you want to say it's Jason Robertson, I would not fight you on that. And a lot of other comparisons you can go through. You can go Hintz and Scheifele, I think, are pretty even. But then you go to the blue line, and I would say that Miro Heiskanen is the best defenseman in this series. And then Morrissey, though, is a second. I don't think it's a close second, but he is convincingly second. But then in net, I would absolutely take Hellebuck. And I think that while I do really like Ottinger's game, Hellebuck just is worlds ahead of every other goalie this season, except for maybe Thatcher Demko when he's healthy this year. Overall, though, I am going to be taking the upset and take the Winnipeg Jets to advance to the conference finals. Next up, you got the Nashville Predators and Edmonton Oilers. And I'm just going to give my opinion early on this one. It was a nice run, Nashville. They were able to get through Vancouver, but I do not see a way that they have enough firepower to get through Edmonton as much as Edmonton is going to get through them. So I am taking Edmonton. I do understand that they do have UC Soros, which can be a problem. But is it really going to be a problem when it's McDavid and Draisaitl going against him? I do think that it will be not a low-scoring series, but on the lower end, because I don't think Nashville really has that much firepower. Granted, at the same time, I don't think that Edmonton has much in the way of defending them. I really like Evan Bouchard, but he is definitely more of an offensive defenseman. I am a bit of a Darnell Nurse hater. I do think he's a very good defenseman, but he's not a top defenseman in the league. But he is better suited for that defensive role. But I do think overall Edmonton will pretty easily go through Nashville. Next up, we got the Florida Panthers and Toronto Maple Leafs. I believe that they played each other in the second round last season. I could be mistaken about this. But Florida, I think, just is on another level in terms of their roster being playoff built. They got Matthew Tkachuk, who can lay a beating and also score 30 goals. They got Barkov, Ekblad. They got Reinhart, who's having a tremendous season. And while Toronto does have probably the better star power on offense when it comes to Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, the depth on Florida, I think, is much better. I would take Florida's defense, and I would take Florida's goaltending. I don't think that this will be as easy of a series as the Edmonton series, but I am going to be taking the Florida Panthers. Now, this is the real intense first-round series. This one and the Winnipeg-Dallas series are absolutely going to be the two closest series. You have two teams that have incredible depth, incredible offense, and incredible defense. Jake Gensel has been absolutely incredible for Carolina since coming over. With the Rangers, they have mostly the same team as before, but they have as before the trade deadline, but they have filled some holes with the additions of Roslovic and Wenberg. And then Philip Hedl might be coming back, which could be really important for the Rangers. Overall, though, Rangers do definitely have the advantage in terms of star power. On the blue line, I think that on paper, the Rangers' blue line is better with Adam Fox, Keandre Miller, Jacob Trouba, and Ryan Lindgren taking up that top four. And Braden Schneider has been incredible as of late. However, Carolina is definitely a better defensive team with players like Jacob Slavin and Jordan Stahl being very good two-way players. Definitely Slavin, I would argue, is the best defensive defenseman in the NHL. So this is going to be a really close series, which at the end of the day, what sways me is goaltending. Freddie Anderson has been good. However, I have not really seen him be able to step it up in the playoffs throughout his career. And Igor Shesterkin has been great lately. And every year he elevates his game to another level in the playoffs. So I am taking the New York Rangers. So now we have the conference finals of the Winnipeg Jets and Edmonton Oilers. And we have the Florida Panthers with the New York Rangers. So in the West, with Winnipeg versus Edmonton, this is really a story of, can the best goaltender in the NHL right now stop the best forwards in the NHL? Not just right now, just the best forwards in the NHL. When it comes to defense, I would definitely take Winnipeg's defense over Edmonton's. So again, it's a matter of, if any defense could stop McDavid and Draisaitl, I think it would be Winnipeg's. So when it comes to that, I've talked a lot about the different players already. But it's really hard for me to say that McDavid and Draisaitl can't get through them. But I think that they'll have a tougher time than in any other series. Their depth is going to be tested, which, while I do think they have decent depth, it's not fantastic. And I think that players like Ehlers, Connor, and Scheifele will be able to get through that Edmonton defense pretty easily. This will be an incredibly tight series, but I am taking the Winnipeg Jets to advance to the Stanley Cup Finals for the first time in franchise history. Next up, we got the Florida Panthers and New York Rangers, which is going to be a bloodbath. I would love to see a Matt Rempe versus Matthew Tkachuk fight in this series, or if not one, a couple. Florida has shown that they can do it. They lost in the Stanley Cup Finals last season, and they are hungry. The Rangers will be coming off of a very tight series against Carolina. However, I do not think that Carolina is a team that will put much of a beating on the Rangers. The strain will more so come from just playing against a really good team. Again, at the end of the day, the Rangers' defense is better on paper, I would say, where Adam Fox, second best defenseman in the NHL. Obviously, I'd take him over Ekblad. And then you got Montour. Probably the Rangers' second best defenseman is Keandre Miller. I kind of consider that a wash. And then after that, I think that the Rangers start to easily take that. Even with Zach Jones as the number 7 defenseman, has been great when needed this year. On offense, when it comes to your top-end forwards, like I said, Matthew Tkachuk is at another level come playoff time. And Panarin, it died last year. He was very invisible. But I do expect Panarin to be able to show up this year. I expect him to have a fantastic playoffs and try to prove everybody wrong. I think that these two teams, this is probably the hardest matchup to decide, and maybe this is my bias as a New York Rangers fan, but I am going to be taking the New York Rangers going to the Stanley Cup Finals. And now, the finals will be the New York Rangers versus the Winnipeg Jets. Now, I didn't plan this going into it, but I will say these are my two favorite teams in the NHL. And I think that these two teams will have an incredible series. The one thing with the Rangers, they can play any style of hockey. If you need high-flying offensive hockey, they can bring that. If you need a defensive, low-scoring hockey, they can bring that too. And you have probably the two best goalies in the NHL in Connor Hellebuck and Igor Shesterkin playing against each other in this series. So, overall, what it comes down to here, while I would take Winnipeg defensively, and this season I would take them in net, I do think that Igor will pick it up in the playoffs and play at another level. I do feel that the Rangers have them beat when it comes to star power. Winnipeg might have a slight edge when it comes to depth, but if Philip Hedl and maybe Blake Wheeler can come back, especially Blake Wheeler will want revenge against the team that 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 stripped him of the captaincy and then bought him out. If he can come back in this series, that will be incredible. Jake Roslovic used to play for Winnipeg as well. With everything considered, and maybe this is a homer pick, but I will pick the New York Rangers to win the Stanley Cup. And I don't really care about the goal total right now. But anyway, so that is my bracket. I am very interested to see what you guys think, and let me know, why am I wrong? Or if you agree with me, why am I right? Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.